University of New Orleans. Please welcome Dr. Ike, Peter Guralnick, and Harold Battiste in all forms.
A quick word here. Libros hit on a lot of the high points, but one of the things is Harold was about 40 years ahead of his time, because you look at the model now, most of the musicians are using, they're now owning their own material and leasing it to the companies. So this man was a visionary with what he did way back when. Secondly, this he broke ground as being the first African American band director on a national TV show when he was directed Sonny and Cher show. In addition, he started out playing with Ornette Coleman and was the first person to grasp the genius of Ornette Coleman. And in addition to that, he's documented the New Orleans jazz scene in the late 50s, early 60s, which was an incredible thing, and people forget the true caliber of the musicianship that was here. And finally, this man, he came back to New Orleans and started the jazz program at the University of New Orleans. So he's done a little bit of everything, and he's extremely important to New Orleans music, and I just feel honored that he's here today. One last thing, just to let you know, one of the things is people don't realize is that the Wall of Sound, this is one of the accredited people that helped create that, because he used to do arrangements, and some guy named Jack Nietzsche used to copy his arrangements, and that's how Nietzsche learned to arrange.
Well, I think there may be an underestimation here. In the sense that Harold, being 40 years ahead of his time, he might be 100 years ahead of his time, because I think a lot of musicians still haven't caught up to the concept he had of ownership of your own music, of taking possession of the means of production and profiting yourself rather than allowing others to simply profit. But I may repeat a little of what's been said, but I just want to bring out that, as I'm sure all of you know, Harold is a master musician in both a classic and a revolutionary mode. There's almost no one he hasn't worked with. Ornette was mentioned, his colleague Ellis Marsalis, Art Neville, Larry Williams, Sam Cooke. He was first a scout and then A&R director down here in New Orleans for Specialty Records in the 50s. He was Sam Cooke's A&R director for Sam's SAR label at the time of Sam's death in 1964. Not even getting into his instrumental creative contributions in working with Sonny and Cher, in working in the creation of Dr. John the Night Tripper, of The Identity. But I think most of all, as has been touched on, he will continue to be recognized for the sense of racial and social justice that has underscored all of his creative and business ventures too. This came to fruition with the creation of the AFO, the band, the label, the production company, whose explicit purpose when he formed it as a collective was really to take back the means of production. It was he put out a manifesto, or he put together a manifesto back in 1959, stating that purpose, and he subsequently acted on it. And it was, as I said, to take possession of the means of production, allow the musician to actually profit from the fruits of his own labors. Now, here's a very brief quote from the 1959 statement, which is that this concept is founded on the principle that today's record industry is realizing tremendous success, which is largely due to the participation of musicians, and that's musicians in capital letters. To date, musicians have performed millions of dollars worth of music on records, but have they shared in the profits that they have contributed their talents to earning? No, because they have performed as laborers, thus earning a salary. And it goes on from there to illustrate the point. So now we're not going to get the whole story of Harold's spiritual and musical journey until Harold publishes his book, which I hope will be coming soon. But I thought maybe we could just start, and I do want to open this up to questions, because I know you'll have lots of questions, but I know Harold has lots to say too. But how did the idea of the AFO first come to you?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, it was just a pleasure to meet you. You're a tremendous and very, I guess, brilliant writer, because I've read some of your stuff. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
And to me, I should be out there and listening, because I'm learning some things about myself. Yeah, it's just, I realize that all of what they're saying is so, but it's only a memory, a vague memory, because I didn't go into it and even thinking that it would wind up this way. The question that you asked just now, what spurred me to do that?
Yeah.
Actually, it started when I started teaching school. When I finished Dillon University, that September, I got a job in a small town in Louisiana called DeRidder, and I had to start a band from scratch. These children had never seen, real instruments and so forth. At any rate, what spurred me is the first time the principal of that school brought me down to the school board, and when I heard how they talked to him, he was my principal, and they were calling him boy. They were talking to him like he was still a slave or something. I don't know what, but he understood it, and he just put his head down. And I realized then that I wasn't going to be able to stay there. That I wasn't going to be able to get along in that town if they talked. He said things to him like, "What y'all want now? What y'all come up here every time we cheering up here, get something y'all wanted." Talking about when the white children got something that we down in the black neighborhood wanted something. So that was really turned me away from what I had thought as a child. It just wasn't pleasant as I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed it very much. I still remember the names of those kids who was in those first 2 years of my teaching in DeRidder. I had pictures of all of them. I had their names and so forth. Because I really loved what I was about doing and bringing, those little children, I call them little children. I guess everybody's like little children to me now. But, they were, the school went from grade school all the way to 12th grade. And I was a novice. I was only 20 years old, and some of the seniors in the school was the same age with me, or 1 year younger than me. But when they said I put out a call for who all wanted to be in the band, most of them didn't even know the names of instruments. They said, "I want to be in the band. I want to play a band," whatever they thought it was. So, but those first 2 years of my life sort of hardened me a little bit to what I was going to be faced with. Then I came back to New Orleans, and 2 years later, because my mother wanted me to be here. She didn't like me to be away from me. And I taught at McDonald 35, and I was an itinerant school teacher that went to several schools. And I ran into the same kind of problem on my second year here. We had a music supervisor, somebody here probably knows, his name was Rene Loire. He came by McDonald was sixth school one day when I was teaching, and I was teaching my kids about reading music, and he called me outside and said, "Look, you waste too much time worrying about reading notes. Their parents want to just hear him play some songs." Well, he didn't realize that I had been hearing a guy talking about things that Elijah Muhammad was talking about in Chicago, a cat named Jimmy. And he was really talking, the talk that everybody's scared of, and calling the white man a devil and all that stuff like that. But he did say, he made one statement, he said, look, you ever looked the way white man did in the eye? And then I realized I never had done that. I never thought about that. Anyway, when Mr. Luak, who was the supervisor, said that to me at McDonald 6, that I was wasting time teaching them about reading music, just let them play some songs. So I wanted to say, well, now, are you saying that to the same guys in the white schools? Are you telling them don't worry about reading? When these kids finish here, when they get to the high school or college or something like that, and they can't read, you are going to say, well, they're not qualified to participate. That's, why are you telling me not to, So he and I couldn't get along. So I got a letter from the school board that I needed to come down there and explain to them why I couldn't do what the supervisor said. And the result of that meeting, they offered me either to comply or resign. So that settled it for me. I just resigned. I said, that's the last I'll teach school, because that's the way it's going to be.
But now you became a black Muslim for a time, right?
Yes,
through Emory Thompson, right?
Yeah.
Through the trumpet player Emory Thompson. But I assume that stemmed from exactly the same, from the teachings of self-determination and
when I heard Jimmy, that was the guy that was talking now. That was before Emory. I had been knowing Emory from high school, sort of like. And when Emory came back talking, I said, well, maybe, but that was after I started working for Special. But anyway, that's how I got started doing it.
Now, what about business? Because the point is, you obviously you had the philosophy in mind. You recognized from the time you first got out of college that things weren't right, that this discrimination was something that you weren't going to settle for. But you went into the music business. What were the lessons you got in business that enabled you to help set up it?
Okay, first of all, I'll clarify this. When you keep using the word business, well, I never thought of myself as a business. I never thought of music as a business. I thought of music as an art that I love to do. It was something that I loved to do, and I loved other people to be aware of it and understand it. So the business aspect of it really didn't sink in. That's why I'm broke now. The best proof is it didn't sink in anyway. That started after the Rene Luop situation, and I resigned. I knew I had just got married, and we had a son. We had our first child. So I don't have a job now. And I went out by Ellis Marcellus' house, and he and a drummer named Edward Blackwell were out there. They were rehearsing on something. But they were planning to go to Los Angeles. Well, what had happened was Ornette Coleman had got stranded down here in New Orleans for about 3 years. He got to know some people around, and he really loved Blackwell as a drummer. And he had sent Edward Blackwell a ticket to come to Los Angeles. Well, Blackwell blew the ticket money, and that's when I found out they were going to Los Angeles. So they knew I had a car. I didn't think about that. So that's how I went to Los Angeles. I'm saying, well, I don't have no job. I might as well, if y'all going to California, I might as well go out there too. So I drove, 3 of us went out to Los Angeles, and that's the first place we got. I had never been that far away from New Orleans. That was the first time I had ever been out of Louisiana, really. I mean, I might have been to Beaumont, Texas, but that was as far as I had ever gotten. Because the river was about 20 miles away from Beaumont. But anyway, it was quite a scene, you know, when I got to Los Angeles. Three of us, when we saw that. And I drove into Los Angeles in the morning during rush hour on those giant freeways. I had never been on a freeway. So it was quite an experience to see that this is the world. So that's when you know, we got out to Los Angeles.
And now, Guralnick was working as an elevator operator at the time.
Yeah, he was working as a freight operator in one of the downtown stores. He was working as a freight operator.
But working on his music while he was riding the elevator.
He had his saxophone down and he was practicing the freight elevator.
But now, and this is why I got to challenge this thing about you not being a businessman, because somehow or other your friends picked you as a businessman.
Well,
because now you recorded some stuff with Guralnick, and then who was it who took it around?
No, I took it around. They asked me to take it around, but they did that based on the fact that I had been a school teacher. They thought I could just, well, you can present it, you know. But that, I didn't know anything about it. Not really. I knew I didn't know anything, though. But you know, that never occurred to me because I was just interested in getting the music done, and I found out step by step what you do. I began to learn something about music once I found the cat Bumps Blackwell, and he got introduced to that, and they wanted to hire me to come back to New Orleans to scout talent and all that stuff like that.
And then this was at Specialty Records, where you took Janie, the Guralnick Coleman song.
Yeah.
That was your introduction.
Yeah, after we went, me and Ornette and Blackwell, Ellis had left and came back to New Orleans. He had to come back to help his daddy do something. So we did a demo, and they selected me to go out in Hollywood and shop it around and see what I could do. And most places I went, I didn't know how to get in, I didn't know whatever. So when I found out Bumps was at Specialty, I said, I'm going to go over there, you know, somebody might know who, you know. And no, Bumps, he didn't really know me. He thought he knew me because my name was Battiste. That's such a common name. He might have had to know somebody because he used to be the one to come to New Orleans to record all of like Little Richard and all people that were recording on Specialty Records. Bumps would come to New Orleans and knew everybody. So he thought he knew me too. And so he and I hit it off, and you know, and he wanted me to come back. So my deal was that if they let me record a jazz record, I'd come back to New Orleans. That was what's supposed to happen. Oh yeah, man, we can do that, we can do that, you know, that kind of thing. So I told Edward and them, and we got our stuff together. My wife and kid was out to Los Angeles then. So I brought my little boy, but it was once been about 1 or 2 years old, brought him back to New Orleans, and we came back and I started doing work for Specialty.
Well, now you told me that now you learned that from our group. Now our group was it's still alive and a brilliant guy, tough businessman, and you said you learned some business lessons from Art, and I think he was very.
Yeah, well, you know, just being around, I mean, at my age at that time, when I was about 26 years old, and here's this man, he was what I thought was a real businessman, you know what I mean? He was wealthy already in oil or something else. He was already a wealthy man, and record was just what he loved. He loved to do that stuff and make music, and he loved gospel music and so forth. He had all of the gospel cats on his record label. So he had a sincere concern about the music, you know, and so I got to learn just by listening and watching him deal with his office and his secretary at the time was Dorothy. She took me and Dorothy, who he eventually married. So that's how I began to learn just by observation. You know, I see him, I say, oh, it's not hard. We can do that. We can do that. piece by piece, and I thought I knew the business, you know, after I had been with them about a year and a half, and had experienced quite a few different situations. I thought I knew it, and I keep emphasizing thought I did, because I didn't know what to do.
Well, I want to take one more experience, you know, educational experience that you spoke about. But I want to point out again, Harold's very modest, but he set up an office, a specialty office here in New Orleans, which, you know, he ran. He figured out ways to publicize it. He got kids to come in to, you know, for tryouts. I mean, and with the idea of reaching out to the community as well as recording hit records. So
Well, see, I'm still learning a lot of things, particularly about myself. Yes, you're right, I have, people think I'm modest, it's just that I'm dumb. Really, I am, and I'm realizing I'm learning more of how much I didn't know. And really, and the bottom line of that is the money part of it. I never did know what I was worth. When somebody asked me how much did I want, I didn't know what to tell them. So as a result, I did a lot of things far cheaper than I could have, you know. I mean, other cats, at one point I can remember finding out that a cat was getting $400 or something, $500 for arrangements for sessions. Damn, we get that much? And I didn't know, I was doing arrangements, you know, as good as him and for the same kind of people. But they all knew that I didn't know no better. And I hate to say it because I really do admire the cat, but Sonny knew better than anybody. Because I met Sonny at Specialty Records. He was a truck driver, meats, you know, he used to drive a meat truck. And he used to bring those songs by Specialty to hustle his song. That's what he always wanted to be. But he was a very, very smart young man. And he was a very charming person. He had the kind of personality that could just win you over, you know. But he's always had his eye on the prize, you know. And so he knew, he always encouraged me to do things. He always said, man, you know, you're a genius. You could do this and do that and all that thing. And me and you ought to be partners. I still have letters from him that he used to write me. And I never did believe that I was that, you know, I could do all of that. But that's the way it was. Most of my career, I was so focused on the music and the enjoyment that I got and pride that I had in music, till it never occurred to me that this was a business. This was really a business. People not in it because they like it, they're in it because they can make money. And, but that, you know.
Okay, but just before you set up the AFO in '61, didn't you go out with Joe Jones?
Yeah.
Now wasn't that?
That was my first experience in the business. Because the first time I had a gig that I got money for was with Joe Jones, right here at the place called the Pentagon. One Sunday. Huh? No, the Pentagon was on Galvez and New Orleans. It's in the 7th Ward on Galvez. And that's what it was, a Pentagon. It was a 5-sided building. We played a Sunday evening dance up there. And at the end of the gig, you know, all the cats was outside and waiting for their money and everything. And Joe gave me $6. And he said, well, what you giving me all that money for? He said, that's your salary, man. You're paid. I said, oh, man, you can make $6. You know, just all I did was sit on the bandstand and play and got $6. Well, $6 to me was a lot of money. Because I had a little job at a restaurant called Uncle Dan. I used to have to work 6 days for $12. I worked 8 hours, 6 days a week and got $12. But now this I played about 3 hours on the bandstand and got $6. I said, oh man, that'd make it good money. But it turns out he had given all the other cats $12. Yes. to Joe Jones. But now Joe Jones was smart. Now that was, I thought he was at that time a good businessman because he did a lot of stuff to get gigs and stuff. And he knew how to deal with people and make them give him his money and all that stuff like that. But he was a smart cat coming out of that neighborhood, just knowing how to do things like that. He wound up almost being a lawyer himself, just because of all the stuff that he had learned, and he sort of passed himself off as a lawyer with other people, artists and so forth. He became their manager and stuff like that.
Well, and then didn't you go out on that? You taught too much on the promotion tour, Joe Jones, and that must have given you a practical experience.
Right, that taught me a lot about promotion. In '59, I think it was, we did a record called "You Talk Too Much." Yeah, that's what it was. She dancing to it. That's it. That was it.
Now, wait a minute, I just want to say before you go into, because you went up to New York to promote the record, which I see is, but the other thing, now here's a promotional thing that will work to this day. Didn't the record get sent to Castro?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was '59. Yeah. And so after we talked to Joe Rufino, who had the record label here, we talked to him into giving us, I think, I forgot how much it was, $300 or $600 to go on the road and promote the record. And Joe had a station wagon, so me and him got in the station wagon and went over to Atlanta, and then we came back from Atlanta and started going up towards Chicago. And when we got to Chicago, that's when I went over to Jet magazine and told, we had sent a record to Castro. We went there and told them that we had done that. And we wound up getting a little plug in Jet magazine because we had done that. Then by the time we got to Detroit, we was low on money, but in the car, we had car problems. And it left us with just a couple of dollars. But we were still not on the road. We headed toward New York. When we got to New York, we had 29 cents between the two of us. 29 cents in New York, and that's my first time ever being in New York. So we wound up in Harlem on 125th Street, and we saw a newspaper that was advertising a thing at Coney Island with Lloyd Price. Now Lloyd Price, if anybody knows his, Lloyd Price had a big hit record called Lordy and Miss Claudia. And so he was, by the night, he was going way past that because he had been to the service and he had come back and he had, I guess it was another record label, because he had joined Harold Logan.
Yeah, I think he was on ABC at that point with Harold Logan.
Yeah, he was Harold Logan. And he had records like Personality and all that stuff like that.
Staggering.
So I said, man, Lloyd Price is here. And Joe said, we can go out, we can get out to Coney Island, we saved. And the subway token was 15 cents a piece, so we had 29 cents. We got a penny from the guard down in the subway station. We got the penny and we got the 2 tokens and went to Coney Island. And Lloyd, of course, he took us on and took us in. He got us a room to stay and so forth. But Lloyd had stuff in his mind. I mean, Lloyd, at least Harold Logan, who's his partner, a manager or something. Because the next day they brought us to Levy and them got
Roulette Records.
Roulette, that's right, yeah, Roulette Records. And because he was gonna, he knew what our record was then going up the charts. And here we are in New York and broke. So they brought us to Roulette and Lloyd, said, okay, we're gonna get y'all, straightened out like that. So I began to see some of the inner workings of how record people did. Now, the little cat, we had recorded in New Orleans, Joe Rufino shows up in New York. I don't know how, but they must have called him up. They showed up because they was going to take the record. But it turns out that Joe had already recorded this some time ago for Roulette Records or somebody. I didn't really understand all that. But they told Joe Rufino that we're going to take over this record. Anyway, the record wound up on Roulette Records. And Joe Rufino got whatever money he was supposed to get and got one on back to New Orleans. But now we're on Roulette Records, and we're associated with Lloyd Price and so forth.
Well, I don't want to convert Harold from an artist and a musician to a businessman, but I just want to point out that we all get our education in different ways, from both good experiences and bad. And Harold obviously was somebody who learned from his experiences, who observed and learned. So, all right, here we are. We're up to, you've gotten a little bit of you want to say it's a little bit of an education. And this is when you go in, I don't want to call it going to business, but you form the AFO Collective. So why don't you talk about the the beginning of the AFO and your further education from the AFO experience?
Oh yeah. Well, I had the idea. That was back in Hollywood again. I had the notion, after I saw how they were doing, I said, well, we could do that. We just make. So in my mind, and I remember it was on the train coming back from Los Angeles. That's when I figured that if I could get 5 or 6 cats, we could go and make our own records, and figured how we could, if we satisfy the union, because that was one of the problems. Remember I said we were working as laborers, and that's what kept us from getting in the profit zone, because they give us that $41 for 3 songs or 4 hours work, and that was us. And then they walk off with the tapes and stuff like that, and they can make whatever they can make with it. So I figured if we could satisfy the union and say we're a corporation and we own this, we'll pay the union dues and so forth. Like that's all the union really want. They want their money. So that was the basis for it. And I don't know if you had that manifesto, and I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was saying. That musicians can own more of their own product if they just didn't take that salary. Said, no, don't pay me nothing. Let me own my stuff. And I'll sell it to you.
Well, you actually figured what an outstanding musician, a session musician like Lee Allen, what he made from the sessions over the course of a year, and what he would have made had he had a piece of those records.
Exactly. I figured that out. It was Lee Allen, who was one of the top session men here, and I just figured if he did one session a week for a whole year, how much money he would make. Then I said, now, if he made, say, 2 cents on every record that was sold out of the thing, if one record that he made that year sold 500,000, then how much that was with how much he made as a salaried musician. And it was just just figured out, it was simple as that. If how much 2 cents per song, per record or whatever, and he was making so many hit records, he was on so many hit records, so that was the basis, the financial basis of realizing that, musicians should own more of it, at least. That's what I thought about it.
So Harold puts together this group of musicians, goes in with, now Jesse Hill brought you Prince Lala and Barbara George, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you put out a couple of records.
The first album was the first 2.
And you have a hit right out of the box with Barbara George.
Mm-hmm. Well,
now where'd you record this?
That's Cosmo.
I've got to say that, that this, we should all recognize Cosmo, because virtually every record that's been mentioned here today, and any record you can think of that came out of New Orleans, came out of Cosmo's studio and out of his. See, we have two modest guys up here. Nobody's going to claim. Nobody wants to claim to have invented the wheel, right?
But I always minded. I don't know if you knew it, man. But see, there was two cats that I really admired, and I admired them for the strangest reason. It was him and David Battiste, and I had never seen either one of them smoke. I never saw him smoke. And that's why I said, man, this cat don't smoke, man. But Cosmo had, I mean, he had, whatever it was about that studio and whatever it was about what he did, it was very unique, and I think it was known all over the New Orleans sound. So, you know, whatever it sounded like. But I think it was the spirit that happened in that place that made us feel that, you know, when we got to music, that we could make the music up. It wasn't about how well it was arranged or how well it was everything like that. It was how good the cats felt when they did it.
No, I mean, I know we've got lots of record collectors out there. We have, you know, all of us have, you know, we think of record titles or labels and something like that. But I think the one thing we should never forget is what Harold's talking about and Cosmo embodied, is the spiritual aspect of it, which translates, it's not one room, it's not the equipment, it's the feeling that comes out of it, like Harold said. But all right, so he goes in there, you know, and we're keeping to the modest line. He knows a little bit, puts out a record and has a top 10 pop and R&B, or number one R&B, I think. And,
went to number 3. Got as high in the Billboard charts as number 3 or something like that.
So, you know, pretty good success. So does this prove the success of the collective idea?
Well, I don't think, no it doesn't. Because all you got to define success. Success, the idea about success has changed from what I used to think about. I thought it was successful if people liked what you did, not if you made a lot of money. Now, people don't think you're successful if you don't make money. If you got a raggedy car, you can't, you can't be that good. Look at that car. So they, you know, they don't people make a different association of what success is now. So that's just me talking because you know, it seems to be much easier now to make money than it is to make good stuff, particularly art. I was just telling a friend of mine just now was at my house. The television, say the prime hours, the news, evening news hours, they got so many advertisements for medicines, different kinds of pills and all that stuff. And I said, you know, I'd like to just sit down a week or two and just write down all these medications that they're selling and see how much it costs them to get these commercials made like that. Because there's got to be some kind of conflict going in there. All these medications in there. And then now you got the cats telling you how all that's wrong with it. They say it's going to cure you, but then they tell you it's going to kill you. And I'm saying that so even, I remember thinking years ago that there's a point at which this culture has gone to where I couldn't trust what I thought were the high professions. And that was like medicine and all those high, the law was a bunch of crooks. you know, and so I figure that the government, even the church for that matter, the high professionals had gotten to the point where it was hard to trust people to just be good. There's no such thing as good. It's just words people say. And being good, like the old saying used to be, you finish last, it become a reality, you know. Good people are at the mercy of the bad people. And we getting to the point, well, you don't get me, y'all gonna keep calling me Dr. What's the cat name? Dr. Jeremiah cat?
Well, I bet you haven't changed your definition of success. So.
Well, I haven't changed it, no. I mean, but it is.
Yeah, no. Well, the point, I'm going to just jump ahead just a little bit because we can't cover everything. I want to have a few questions from the audience, but you know, we won't go into how Harold's hip got taken away from him. But I think that was another contribution to his education. And just very briefly, and this is the AFO ended up, Harold and a number of the other musicians ended up in California through they went to the NARA convention. It became NATRA, but it was the National Association of Radio Announcers, right? Later television too. And we're out there in Los Angeles and decided to set up in Los Angeles. And this led to just one other thing I thought we could go into, just given the time limitations, which is Harold's association with Sam Cooke, which in a sense was an extension of all of the ideas that he had originally brought to it. And it came about accidentally. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you connected and then what it led to.
Okay, yeah. When we got back out in Los Angeles, Sam by that time had become a national hero, a big star. And I started doing a few things for him because we had broken up as a band or something like that now. And I went to me and Melvin Lashley, who was a close partner, went to him and looking for something to do, said we could earn a living. So Zelda Sands, who was his secretary, said, I need some lead, somebody to do some lead sheets and so forth. Like, well, Melvin spoke up. He said, well, Harold can write anything you want. So he got me to write lead sheets. Anyway, we got to talk with Sam, and we found out that, I found out that Sam had similar ideas to what I had about record business. And I presented him with an idea of having some way to let people in Watts in South Central, that's what they call it, South Central Los Angeles, to practice and get themselves together before they presented themselves out in Hollywood. A lot of too many talented people in this area never did get beyond living in that area. And even when they got a chance to go out there, they were very nervous and, you know, upset being presented. So we created an idea, a concept of having soul stations, places that we would call soul stations, that where talented people from the neighborhood could come and sort of have pre-training, a pre-place to, you know. And with Sam having a label himself, Saw Records, as Peter mentioned, he had several artists that really wanted to have a place in the neighborhood, so to speak. So I presented that to Sam, and he went all the way for it. Said, look, go out and find a place, and I'll sponsor it. So we set up a soul station on Vernon, yeah. No, was it Vernon? Vermont. On Vermont.
37th in Vermont.
37th in Vermont, right across from USC in that neighborhood. And in that little storefront place that we rented as a soul station. Actually, that germinated into the record that the Womack Brothers had, that big hit, which turned out into be a hit for the Rolling Stones.
It's all over now.
All over now.
Right.
Yeah.
She is lovely.
Yeah, yeah. And also that was where actually ultimately that's where Sonny and Cher came out of that little place there, man. Because when Sonny met Cher, I was back with Sam doing stuff at the Soul Station, and he brought her. I don't know if he brought her down there. He came down there to get me to do arrangements for something, because he said Cher's uncle had some money and she wanted to record. And would I come and would I do something, help him get do it and record? So I didn't want to go in the studio with it, but I wrote him some charts out for a song called The Letter, I think it was, something like that. And he went to a guy and got it. They used to call themselves Caesar and Cleo at that time, because that was the time they had a big movie out with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. So that's what they called themselves on that first record, Caesar and Cleo. But he got it on the radio. He got it on the radio. Enough for them to get another record. And the second record we did was a thing called Baby Don't Go. Baby Don't Go. That was on Yeah, Baby Don't Go. That was the second record. And but that was Cher singing all of that, most of that. And so that was the first time they called themselves Sonny and Cher. And we met some hotshot managers. You know Brown Stone, Green Stone?
I don't know personally, but I know who they are.
That was my first realization of what people say when they say New York pushy Jews and all that. Charlie Green and Brian Stone. Them two cats came to Hollywood, went into some Hollywood studio, like not Paramount, but some more further, and found an empty office. They went into that office and set up like it was their office. They was operating that office, and people thought that they belonged there. Pushing, man.
Well, I think I do want to take some questions, because we could go into Dr. John, we could go into a whole lot of things, but one thing that I just would point out, when it was time, there were Red Tyler was out there with you, a bunch of musicians were out there with AFO. When it came time for somebody to go out and hustle up some business, who did they send out there but this non-businessman, to be the spokesman? So I'm not trying to turn you into a businessman, but I'm just saying that Harold did. He was the person who made the connection, and through his good offices and his good character was able to set these things up. Maybe not always to work out exactly the way that he intended, but. And the other thing that I would point out is what he was talking about is that with that Soul Station, the idea. So Sam died within 10 months or so of that first Soul Station being set up. But the idea was to set up many Soul Stations. It was Chuck Beatty, I think, wrote in chalk, or so he says on the window, Soul Station #1. But there was supposed to be many more after that. And the whole idea, again, was to stay true to the community, to do something that could benefit both the art and the people, and to encourage people to express themselves and to express themselves, in a world in which a lot of things were weighted against you if you were black. So I think that you can see a thread in Harold's career. But let's see if we have any questions. Yeah.
Well, thanks. I love listening to you. Without dwelling on it too much, I would be interested in hearing a little of the story of how the hits got taken away from you.
Well, it was easy. Yeah, because the first one, you know, the Barbara Joyce thing, Juggy Murray, who's the cat who was our national distributor, after me and Melvin we went to Chicago with her to play the Regal Theater, or I think it was, then when we got to New York, we said, okay, well, she's going to do the Apollo. Juggy Murray can take over now because he's in New York. And we left her there with Juggy, and in 3 days, she wanted to buy her contract from us. Because he had convinced her that we didn't know what we was doing. Well, he was right, we didn't know what we was doing. But that, you know, she should sign up with him. And he went out and bought her a Cadillac and a fur coat. And that was just so typical, you know, for him to go out and make her think that he's buying her a Cadillac, and she was excited and everything like that. So she wanted to buy a contract. I talked to her mama and her daddy, and I said, she doesn't really want to do you. Me and Melvin went up to New York to talk to Juggy. I said, Juggy, that's a mistake. You don't know how to record that girl. You don't know, you know. He had the lawyers, all that. It was good. We didn't give him $25,000. We told him, give us $25,000. We take it. And we knew it was just going to be a problem for him. But he didn't know how to record it. We were at the Apollo that night. He was supposed to be in the studio with her and a couple of cats, you know, that we knew that he used all his sense. He came back laughing, you know, about what was going on in the studio with him trying to do something with Barbara. And it was sad for her because it ruined her life. You know, she never really recuperated from that. And she came back to New Orleans and she had the car, and then the drug dealers started using her car to do their business and like that. And one with her whole life became a series of drug things. Of course, they had got her hooked on drugs. And I remember going up one time, when I came back to New Orleans, I tried to get her to move out of the city so the cats couldn't reach her. She went down to Chauvin, Louisiana, to stay with her mama. And I used to bring her money down to Chauvin. One time I went down there, and as I was giving her money, they had two drug cats waiting right there for her. Waiting right in front of me, you know, and this just
But I should point out, I think I'm correct in this, and you said one of the reasons, you told me one time that one of the reasons you went with Juggy was because you saw this black cat and you figured the guy's got to deal right by me. And one of the lessons that you said you took from this was that business has no color.
That's right. I said, that's really, we just got to do it because when Sonny Bono told Juggy, he was looking for the A&R man to come down here. Well, I didn't know nothing about Juggy Martin, but on the phone, I didn't know. So when he got off the airplane and we saw he was black, we said, oh, well, we're in luck. Because I didn't think we could get a national distributor who was black. We went for it, we just didn't even read the contract.